I'm Doug Doherty with Hamilton Flourishing, and today we're continuing our journey talking to candidates who are running for Chattanooga's municipal elections, which are being held March 2nd. They are for mayor and for 9 council seats. There are 30 something people running for all these offices. There are two, however, candidates who do not have opposition, and we're really delighted today to be talking to Chip Henderson of District 1, who does not have opposition. And so, Chip, good morning. Glad to see you.
Good
You look,
morning, Doug.
you look
Good to be with
fresh
you today.
and ready to go.
I'm an early morning person. I do my best work in the morning.
Me too. Me too. I'm glad we're doing this. Before we get going, Chip, tell us a little bit about where District 1 is.
So starting towards the south, it's Lookout Valley, and then moving north, it goes into North Chattanooga over to the North Shore. Everything west of North Market Street. Then we move into Mountain Creek area, and then further north on up into a little portion of Hickson around Boy Scout Road.
Okay. So it's really the city. It's all the city. I'm looking at a map now. It's all the city to the on the left side of the city border.
I'm pretty much the west border of the city, and I call it a long dog leg.
Does it
If you're
mean
familiar with golf terms.
Is this the frontier of Chattanooga, the west side? I mean, no, that's not the west.
Well, it is the west side, and it's a pretty rural area as a whole. So this could be the frontier of Chattanooga.
I wish I could show folks the map so they could see where they're going. Now, we'll tell the listener that you can go to hamiltonflourishing.org. That's hamiltonflourishing.org. And if you don't know what district you're in, there's a button you can push, and it'll take you to a site that'll tell you what district you're in, so you'll know what candidate you want to vote for. And
Doug, and thank you for that service. I think that's a tremendous help for people to be able to find who their representative is and information about candidates. And I think being an informed voter is so critical these days, knowing who you're voting for, where they stand, what they stand for.
Yeah, well, we've got pictures of everybody that we could. There was a couple folks that we couldn't find pictures, but we've got connections to their Facebook and or website. And then these interviews are being tacked up as we get them. And some candidates may choose to not do them. Some candidates may choose to just send us their answers written, and we'll put those up. We will post the questionnaire that we're using. I will say that the questions I'm going to ask Chip are a little bit different because it's not a competitive. It's always competitive, but he doesn't have an opposition. So I'm going to ask him a little bit different question. I think that we can learn from Chip a perspective on where we've been. Because Chip, how long have you been in the city council?
This is my 8th year. I'm in my 2nd term. I'm seeking office for my 3rd term.
And you've been with Mr. Burke the whole time he's been in office, right?
That's correct. We came in at the same time. That's correct.
Okay. And Chip, tell us a little bit about yourself. You may have some people watching who are new to the area you're talking about, the Lookout Valleys, Moccasin Bend, Mountain Creek, Hickson, Northwoods area. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Were you born in Chattanooga?
I was born in Hamilton County. I spent most of my childhood in North Georgia, specifically in Chickamauga. Graduated from Gordon Lee High School. Moved back to Chattanooga when my wife and I got married back in 1981. We've raised 3 kids, 3 children here in the Lookout Valley area. They all attended public high school. I am a business owner. For the last 30 years, I've run a construction company, owned a construction company, Henderson Construction Company. I'm very involved in my church, Temple Baptist over on Rossville Boulevard. One of the things that I started back in Probably 2012, I guess, was mentoring kids, and I began taking them on trips to teach them responsibility, teach them leadership, and it's just amazing to look back at the number of kids that's participated in that and the impact that it's made on their lives. We've taken them to cities like Orlando, Florida, York, Pennsylvania, um, Cincinnati, Ohio. And it's just to be able to get some of these kids out of Chattanooga. Many of them never been out of the city. We've taken them when we go to Orlando. We've taken them to the beach, to the ocean. Many of them's never seen the ocean before. We took them when we went to Pennsylvania. We took them to Philadelphia. They got to see the Liberty Bell, Constitution Hall, understand how our government started. And then we always take them one day that we'll have just a fun day. And they've been to Hershey, Pennsylvania, Hershey Park. We've taken them to Disney World. We've taken them to Six Flags. So it's just a learning experience, and it's really been fulfilling for me, and it's been something that I think that's desperately needed to be able to mentor and to give our kids some life experiences and prepare them for leadership.
Great. With all that on your plate, do you have any hobbies or things you like to do for fun?
I do. I am a beekeeper.
Are you really?
I am. I enjoy keeping bees and extracting the honey. That's been a fun hobby for me. My wife and I enjoy traveling. We've been to Italy. We've been to Africa, Mexico, Canada. Some of the countries around. So we enjoy that. But I'm also a woodworker. Although I'm in construction by trade, I am a woodworker. I enjoy woodworking.
Yeah. I'd love to do a program, not part of this election, sometime with you about the bee population and what's going on there. And I have lots of friends who are beekeepers, and they keep sending me SOSs to help the bees. And
it's been a struggle for the past, I don't know, 5 years,
yeah.
Really to take the bees through the winter. I think I've found a process sort of to help them out. And I know that sounds a little strange that we're having to help God's creatures, but it has been a struggle for the last couple of years.
We've lost
lost.
half of our bees out there.
Yeah. So I think about the average loss for a beekeeper through the winter is about 50%. Some are a little bit more. So, depending on how large your apiary is, depends on kind of how many you wind up losing.
Hey, let me ask you this question and I'll ask it again as we close. But if people want to contact you, if they want to ask you a question or get your advice or anything, do you have a website you use or any way of contacting you?
Well, I do have a Facebook page that they can message me on. I do have my city email, cchenderson@chattanooga.gov. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me, so that I have sort of a written record of your concern, and I can respond in that way.
cchenderson@chattanooga.gov.
Yes, sir.
And what's your Facebook page? What's it called?
It's just Chip Henderson.
Okay. Great. Chip, we've heard about your district. We've heard a little about you. I think that helps us understand the kind of work you do. You've got 8 years of experience now, so that's not really a question. Tell me what you think is, what have you learned about the direction Chattanooga is going as a city? And do you think it's the right direction, or do you think it needs to change some?
Let me tell you the direction that I feel like we need to go in. If that might be a better way to address it. When I took office, I guess the number one concern and complaint from District 1 citizens was our infrastructure, particularly our streets, our roads. They were not well maintained. Many of them were in just disrepair, poor repair. When I took office, we were spending about $1.7 million on paving. Within my first term, we were able to double that amount. And now we have tripled that amount. And I think that's a significant investment that people want to see, at least in District 1, and I would say pretty much across the city. They want to make
Are those figures citywide or just for your district?
that would be citywide. When you say the figures, you talking about the money that we put in.
Yeah, you said you started with 1.7. You
Yeah,
doubled
yeah,
it.
that's our city budget.
City budget.
Our line, yeah, not just
Okay.
District 1. I wished it was District 1. I'd like
So,
to be spending $4 or $5 million on roads in District 1.
so where are we going? Where do you think we need to be going?
So here's what I see in Chattanooga right now. I believe we need to focus on a well-educated citizenry. In other words, we need to concentrate on workforce development. We have many in our city that's become invisible. They are either unemployed or underemployed, and particularly during this COVID time, we've got to be able to pivot. And we've lost a lot of our service jobs, but that doesn't mean that there are not other jobs that are available in Chattanooga. So we have to be able to pivot. But to be able to pivot, you have to be able to train and retool, and obviously that takes funding. And I think one of the things that we're going to have to concentrate on, and one of the directions that we were going to have to head in, is workforce development, making sure that we have the funding there to train and to educate our citizens to be able to be productive, and to contribute to our city. The other thing that is a little concerning for me right now is seemingly the direction or what we've experienced over the past year with our first responders, particularly our police. There's been a big push to reallocate dollars away from our police budget, and I think I'm not saying we always need to take a look at whatever we're funding or whatever we're budgeting, but as it has been my experience, I've been able to do ride-alongs and participate in training exercises. It's become increasingly aware to me that we need to be able to raise the funding level for our first responders, not only our police but our fire as well. In other words, all of our sworn personnel. And I think long term, we're going to have to look at our benefits, our employee pay for not only sworn but our unsworn as well. We need to be able to set an example of what a livable wage looks like, to make sure that our employees are not having that they're not struggling, to make ends meet.
Do you know, and you may not, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, do you know what the starting salary is for a policeman or a fireman in Chattanooga? About?
Well, I'm gonna pass on that one. I'm not exactly certain. I don't want to put a number out there and then be completely wrong. I know about what I think it is, but that's probably something that I need to find out. I think for firefighters, it's around $34,000 a year for starting pay, and I would say the police would be along the same lines.
Okay. So Well, some of the questions that I did have to do with supporting of the physical infrastructure, the road, bridges, sewers, and such. And also, it's kind of a natural infrastructure support for parks, woodlands, waterways, mountains, and things like that. That's such a big part of Chattanooga. And are, I know you support the infrastructure part of the traditional thing, but what about the other things, the parks and the walkways and all that kind of stuff? Are you a big fan of all that or not?
Well, so part of becoming incorporated is making sure you have enhanced services for your citizenry. As Chattanooga grows and expands, uh, it becomes more difficult to do. It becomes more expensive to do. And I guess the short answer to your question, and I don't want to dodge it, is yes. I do support uh, those types of infrastructure as well. I think that's what makes a city a great city. I think it's what makes it an attractive city, and people desire to move here, and you begin to grow the base.
Yeah,
Um,
I
eh,
agree.
eh, but as we do expand, and I think one of the things that's sort of been a negative cause is expanding, or in other words, annexation. Um, the thought of a city is delivering enhanced services in a dense area. It's obviously cheaper, or more cost effective to make one stop in a garbage truck and be able to pick up 10 garbage cans than it is to go down a long road where perhaps you've got uh, 3 and 5 acre tracts. And there's many parts of my district that are like that. They have large acre tracts. So delivering those enhanced services begins to become more costly and more expensive. So I think one of the challenges that we're going to have in this uh, coming council will be, how can we most effectively deliver those services at the lowest cost? And I think that's something that we're going to have to grapple with, and I think we're going to have to come up with some innovative solutions. I think it may involve rethinking our government. We duplicate several of our services between the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County. For instance, we operate 2 animal shelters. Hamilton County operates an animal shelter, and the city of Chattanooga operates animal shelter. Obviously, we have a sheriff's department and a city police department. So many of our services sometimes are duplicated, and I think we're going to have to start looking at ways uh, to merge those, to combine those, to see if that we can come up with the most effective way to deliver those services to the citizens of Chattanooga.
I have two questions related to kind of the rule of law as it would be expressed uh, to most people as in terms of their understanding of it. And it's just two-part question. Do you support the complete funding, training, and oversight of law enforcement?
Absolutely, and that's what I was referring to earlier. I think I think one of the roles of government is the protection of its citizens, and that comes in many different forms. The safety and protection of its citizens should be the number one role of any government. But I think a well-equipped, well-trained first responders is just a necessity. I had the privilege of going through a fire ops training class last Saturday, sponsored by the Chattanooga Fire Department, and they had invited. It's my understanding they had invited all the candidates for city council, for mayor, and there were a number of them there, and we got to suit up as firefighter would go into a smoke-filled building, dark, with their mask, breathing apparatus on, and search for a downed firefighter. And we had to go in and find them, drag him out, and that's quite an experience to understand exactly what they're going through. We went through a little agility course to get a little bit of an understanding of what they have to go through on a day-by-day basis. And let me just tell you this: this is probably the fourth fire ops training that I've gone through. One thing that I come away with every time is the appreciation that these men and women put themselves in on a day-to-day basis. But second is, I know that if I'm having a bad day and I need to call 911, that I've got some of the best trained men and women coming to help me that there are in the United States. I'm convinced that our Chattanooga Fire Department is well trained, and we need to make sure that continues. Now, one of the things that they're struggling with right now is maintaining the numbers that they need, and part of that is because of low pay. And the same goes with the police department. One of the things that impressed me, or I think that came out of the Citizens Oversight Committee, was the training that they have to go through. They have to go through the Citizens Academy. They have to do some ride-alongs. I think about three ride-alongs. So shortly after they had completed their training, they did the ride-alongs. We had a meeting. The city council just sort of had an informal sit down. This is pre-COVID, and we were all in the same room. To the person, everybody praised what a city police officer went through during the day. And it's something that they did not realize until they went with the ride-alongs and did the ride-alongs. Mm-hmm. Each of them said it was an eye-opening an experience. And I think if average citizen could go and do a ride-along with a police officer, I think they would get a new appreciation for what they face during the day. I mean, it is. I know the ride-alongs that I've done, the training that I have done with them. Sometimes it gets intense when a police officer gets out with his gun drawn and he goes into danger. When the rest of us are running from danger, you gain a new appreciation for what they do. And so, yes, I do support the complete funding for our first responders.
I can assume, I think I know what your answer will be to this, but I do need to answer it. It's been in the news a lot, almost got on the ballot. Do you support the partial defunding of the police and an unelected community control board overseeing the police with the power to subpoena law enforcement officers about alleged actions?
No, sir, I do not support that. I don't support the defunding of the police, and I've made that, I think, very clear, when we were going through our budget process. The oversight committee that we have, I think, is a fair balance to have. And look, anytime you can get government works best when the citizens are involved, and we need to get as many people involved in government matters as we can, and so they can become informed. And it's like I referred to earlier when those that are on the committee did their ride-alongs, how it was an eye-opening experience for what police officers actually went through during the day. So while I do support a oversight committee of citizens, I don't support what was trying to get on the ballot.
Okay, good answer. One of the other important things, or a few other things I want to ask you, and it's really important to any city, has to do with the economic climate. What do you think needs to be done for businesses, businessmen, people looking for jobs, job seekers? We need we've got to keep our robust economy. Let's assume COVID is gone.
Mhm.
And what can the city council advocate in terms of uh, a strong economy and the recruitment or development of jobs?
So the first thing that we need to do is create a deep talent pool. Any business, I think, will tell you that their number one priority is finding well-trained, well-equipped personnel. They've got to have the employees to be able to function, to be able to operate. And I think that goes along with the workforce development. Now, pre-COVID, I was working with an organization here in Chattanooga to try to create a vocational experience, learning experience. I think it's important that we do get vocational schools um, training. Let me put it that way. I call it a school. I think it's important that we do get vocational training back in Chattanooga. I think if we create um, a deep talent pool, that's going to be very attractive to businesses all across the United States. I heard Governor Lee speak at EPB, probably been 3 years ago, well, right after he was elected. I don't know how long he's been in office now. I lose track of time. But he wanted to be in the top 10 for workforce development, for having that talent. And I would say that we need to be in the top one of the cities that can provide that talent pool. I think that's what will attract businesses to Chattanooga. I think the second thing is keeping our property taxes at a palatable rate. I mean, that's another thing. A business doesn't want to pay all their money out in taxes. So we need to make sure that we're keeping our property tax and our other taxes at a rate that is palatable. Uh, the other thing, and we've been touching on this, is an adequate infrastructure. You have to be able to get your product out. We are an 8-hour drive for about 60% of the United States here in Chattanooga, and I think that's huge. We've got waterway, we've got railway, and we've obviously got the highway, the interstate. I think having basically three major interstates running right through or right around Chattanooga is huge, and we have to be able to capitalize on that. But a lot of people don't think about how important electricity is to businesses. Many times it could cost businesses thousands of dollars just to have a blink and lose electricity for just a second. And I think having an APB has addressed this and has done a tremendous job of providing really a low cost and a very efficient electricity, and then plus we've got the internet. So I think having that infrastructure in Chattanooga, having a deep talent pool, having taxes at an affordable rate, I think are all things that will factor into bringing a robust economy to Chattanooga.
Good answer. One of the issues that's come up as I've talked to candidates and we've done some polling on it has to do with affordable housing. There's
Mm-hmm.
been the gentrification of a lot of parts of Chattanooga. St. Elmo is a good example. North Chattanooga is another example. The area around Main Street is another example. It's moving into Red Bank, moving into Highland Park. What is your thought about affordable housing? I mean, the city has made efforts at that. I don't know that they've been successful, but what is your thought about that?
Well, I'll tell you, of I think everything that we face in Chattanooga, and this is probably one of the toughest issues for me in thinking about what government's role is. Um, my immediate, when I say my immediate thought, my I guess innate thought is to invest in advancing skill levels. In other words, as as I rise up, uh, the wage uh, earnings, housing becomes more affordable. As income rises, housing becomes more affordable. And so, I think in terms of investing in educating our people, I think in terms of increasing their skills so they become more valuable. And as they become more valuable, their income goes up, and as their income goes up, housing becomes more affordable. Now, apart from that, I think what you are looking at is some kind of subsidy to incentivize either developers to create some low income housing through affordable rents and so forth, things like that. I think other things that we can do is partner with organizations um, in training a workforce. I think you can also create housing that is affordable for individuals. That I would say, Doug, is probably one of the hardest issues for me to tackle and to grapple with.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that there's some land that's in the city's uh, control that could be turned into some kind of a land trust uh, that would be an incentive to develop. I think that there's zoning things that could. My wife and I just came from a community and we spent some time up there up near Monteagle of tiny homes out in the woods. And I thought, what a wonderful thing this would be uh, if the zoning was capable of having a well landscaped, laid out place where seniors, uh, college students, people like that could have a place to live and they could own it and then they could sell it again because it was really amazing what you can put in 400 to 500 square feet if you design it well.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
but the zoning right now doesn't prohibit. I mean, it prohibits them doing that. So I think there's a lot of those. Are I'm not suggesting that, but I'm saying that there are creative solutions to this thing without doling out more money. I think there's ways to incentivize it. So
Well, so let me tell you, and since you did bring that up, and one of the ways through zoning right now, accessory dwelling units in R1 is not permitted, um, and that's simply you might refer to it as a mother-in-law suite,
right,
a garage apartment that's detached from your home. Right now, those are not permissible in Chattanooga because of zoning, but I do think that is a way to create some affordable housing. Is if I can, create another dwelling on my piece of property that I can rent out at an affordable rate, and that
right.
that also becomes um, a way to bring affordable housing to Chattanooga without necessarily government subsidizing it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Chip. I really do. And we're talking to Chip Henderson. Chip is running for a reelection into District 1, which is the western side of Chattanooga from the Georgia border all the way up to, well, up in Hickson. So, um,
Mhm.
and that the election is March 2nd, or voter registration continues through I know it ends February the 1st. Early voting will begin February the 10th and end on February the 25th. So if you're not registered to vote and you're hearing this video in time, then you can go do that. You can do that at the hamiltonflourishing.org website. And you can also find out what district you're in at the Hamilton website. And Chip is available at his government email is just CC Henderson at chattanooga.gov. That's CC Henderson at chattanooga.gov. He also has a Facebook page as well under his name. Chip, just a couple more questions. Um, what do you think about uh, these are two areas, but they involve the same parts of town. What do you think about expanding public transportation and the whole notion of food deserts in the city? Is that again something? Part of that has been publicly funded public transportation, and
Mhm.
then part of it is trying to incentivize uh, fresh food stores as opposed to convenience stores to come into parts of town where people don't have access to fresh food and stuff. Do you see a bigger role for the city government in that?
So let me address the problem with transportation. No secret in my district we are predominantly white, and so probably about 3 years ago, I had been working somewhat with a African American gentleman, and got to know him very well uh, through actually some workforce development initiatives that we were trying to do. And I was talking to him one day about. I said, if I'm going to be an elected official and a city leader, I said I really need to understand the Black community more, so that I can understand what they're facing and some of the challenges, so that I can be responsive to that. And I just asked him if he would be willing to sit down maybe once a month and have lunch with me, just us talk, so that I could get a better understanding about some of the challenges that the Black community faces. Through those conversations that we've had, I did come to realize that there are two Chattanoogas. Uh, and I think one of the biggest issues in the Black community is transportation. They have limited transportation, and without the public transportation, it is really hard for many of them to, one, find employment. Childcare becomes a tremendous hurdle for them. I've heard stories of some moms that may have to ride a bus up to an hour by the time they get their child dropped off at childcare, and then on to their job. So there is a tremendous need for better transportation system in Chattanooga. Now, here again, and it goes back a little bit to what I said at the beginning. Enhanced services really depend on a dense population. The more people that you can put in one area, the more effectively you can deliver those services. But as we begin to sprawl out, those services begin to get very expensive, and part of that is enhanced or magnified in the transportation. Part of the reason people don't take public transportation is because of the long delays that you might have at a bus stop. But the problem is, if you run more frequently, you have to stay in a tighter area. In other words, you can't go out as far. So we try to strike a balance between running bus lines on a short time interval and being able to branch out far enough that it really services the larger part of our population. So transportation, I think, it is something that government needs to be involved in, and it's something that we need to fund in order to be able to service our citizens. Food deserts would not be, I don't think, as big of a problem with adequate transportation, but therein lies part of the problem.
Yeah.
So transportation is expensive. It's expensive to run buses.
I'm
The
just sitting here
maintenance and upkeep.
thinking, listening to you, we've become this, what do they call it? Silicon Valley of logistics in Chattanooga. And there are these really bright guys and girls, women involved in the logistics industry, which is highly technical, but involving very sophisticated computer analysis of what's going on in terms of I wonder if someone like you could introduce those folks to the CARTA people and the other transportation people, and really begin to do some analysis of where people go and when they go, and how often, and who it is, and that sort of thing, and come up with a really computer vetted uh,
Data driven.
analysis,
Data
data
driven.
driven thing. Because my interviews with the people at CARTA is I don't think they have that level of sophistication, and and we've got apparently the most sophisticated logistics industry people in the country here in Chattanooga, and
I would agree.
that's well. Listen, this has been great. I think you've answered all the questions that I really wanted to ask you. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, something that strikes me over this past summer is we've become a very divided nation, and to some extent a divided city, and we have to be able to work back together. We have to be united. We will always disagree on things, but uh, we have to learn to do that in a civil way. And I think what we need to make sure is that we have adult leaders in every level of government that are willing to work together to come up with the solutions that we need to make Chattanooga a great place to work and live. And so that's my goal, and my desire is to bring Chattanooga together as one, address the needs that we have, uh, as well as being able to offer the freedoms that we are so used to, and that we have come to expect.
Well, Chip, thank you so much for the conversation, for the interview. Lots of luck, and well, you don't need luck. You're going to be the next.
Well, unless an unopposed, I mean, unnamed opponent, the right end uh, uh, rears his ugly head, I should be okay.
Yeah, and again, the election is March 2nd. We have had in the past not good turnout for the city election, so we want to encourage everybody. The polling we've done through Hamilton Flourishing shows that this is going to be a huge turnout election because there's so many people running.
Right.
And so we're excited about that. We encourage you to register to vote. You can go to hamiltonflourishing.org and see a link there to vote, and you can find out all the candidates. Early voting will begin February the 10th and end on February the 25th. The election is March 2nd. And Chip, we wish you a lot of luck, and thanks for your
Thank
time
you, Doug. Yeah,
with Hamilton Flourishing. We appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you.